On December 7, 2023, Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada released a program delivery update about the public policy for spouse or common law partner in Canada class or family class applicants to apply in Canada. This is commonly known as the Open Spousal Work Permit for spousal sponsorship applications. There were many changes announced, and the page was essentially rewritten. And I think what would be helpful is to just go through the new program delivery instructions for visa officers. And it's the first thing right off the bat to note is that in these instructions, officers refers to IRCC officers only and not Canada Border Services Agency officers, as applications cannot be made at the port of entry. This was the case before. However, there was some uncertainty about whether people could submit open spousal work permits at the border, and it is clear with the new instructions that they cannot. The eligibility requirements for the open spousal work permit are that number one, the applicant must have submitted the application for an open work permit using the online IRCC Secure account, which is also MyCIC account, or the Authorized Paid Representative's portal. What this clarifies and addresses, and the instructions later explicitly state, is that applicants cannot include their open spousal work permit applications with the permanent residence application, as people often were doing. I know that I had clients who were doing it. One of the advantages of doing this, as I learned through a judicial review of someone else's application, was that there was always this uncertainty of when IRCC bounced a permanent residence application for being incomplete, it was technically questionable whether they could also bounce the work permit application if that work permit application was complete. And I know of litigation, including my own, that was successfully resolved on this point. And that is likely why they are now explicitly instructing applicants that they have to submit these work permits through the Authorized Paid Representative portal or the My account. Second, the applicant has to be physically in Canada and of valid temporary resident status or be on maintained status, or have applied and be eligible for restoration of temporary status at the time of the decision on the work permit application. And I know that when these new rules were announced, there's a little bit of confusion that restoration requires that someone apply to restore their status within 90 days of the work permit of their previous status expiring. And it's not clear if someone has to have applied for and be eligible for restoration of temporary resident status at the time of the decision of their work permit application. It seems like if work permit processing is generally taking around 6 months, that there will be an issue as to whether any of those can actually be approved, depending on how one reads this new requirement. 3, the person must be included as a spouse or common law partner in the spouse or common law partner class. In other words, they must be part of the spousal sponsorship application. 4, and the application must be complete. 4, they must be the subject of the sponsorship application. And 5, at the time of application, they must be residing at the same residential address in Canada as the sponsor if a principal applicant, or if their child is the sponsor and principal applicant. And again, it's a bit confusing the way this has been worded to say that the following criteria must be met at the time of the decision of the work permit application. And then several of the requirements say at the time of application, and then I've applied for. So there's just a little bit that could have been written a bit clearer. Also, people are not eligible for this program if their application for permanent residence has been refused, withdrawn, or returned. Previously, it only said refused or withdrawn, so now there's also certainty over returned applicants with returned applications not being eligible for the policy. those who applied for permanent residence without status under the public policy in Annex A, the people who have applied through the permanent residence portal. In other words, they had tried to attach the open work permit as part of their application, and if they submit their application at a port of entry. Applicants who apply for this program must provide proof of their relationship, a copy of the acknowledgement of receipt, and there's a little bit of a grace period. So generally, to apply, the applicant must apply at the time that their permanent residence application has met completeness. Where someone's status is expiring, then they can apply even if they haven't yet received the acknowledgement of receipt, but they have to do their application within 2 weeks of their status expiring. I'm not sure why they decided on such a short period there and what they are trying to avoid. They must have proof that they have valid temporary resident status, and they must reside at the same residential address as the sponsor. There is also language about a foreign national not being considered the spouse or common law partner or conjugal partner of a person if the marriage was entered into in bad faith, its primary purpose was immigration, or it's not a genuine relationship. This is always something that is assessed in spousal sponsorship applications. Traditionally, it wasn't assessed at the work permit stage. The general logic behind the work permit was due to delays in the processing of spousal sponsorship applications. Applicants could get these interim work permits. It seems like introducing a genuineness test to the work permit stage, to the extent that they actually do assess this, will really just result in duplicate work. And one would, we would have one officer at one visa office for the work permit assessing genuineness for a work permit that's part of a spousal, and then another officer at the permanent residence also assessing genuineness. So it seems like there's just a bit of duplicate work involved. Those are the key points of the open spousal work permit. I hope that this program, this YouTube video, helps clarify the updates that were announced on December 7th.